good afternoon, and welcome back to Gulfstream Park. Thank you for joining us on this Thursday afternoon on Gulfstream today. I'm Gabby Gaudette, joined by Acacia Courtney with 10 races on tap, and it's once again a glorious day here in South Florida.
It is. We have 10 fun races today on Thursday, but tomorrow is Friday, and you know what that means. It is time for Beat the Expert. Gabby was our expert last week. We are rotating, so it will be
and
back
I didn't do very well.
Well, that's okay. There's always next week. There's always next week. The tough thing about Beat the Expert, though, Gabby, is because it is just your top pick. So we'll see if Ronnie can take the torch tomorrow.
And I will tell you, that was my first time ever doing Beat the Expert. There's a lot of pressure on you for your top selections on those particular days. But Ronnie's actually had a really good track record. He started kind of with an early lead last time he did it. He had 3 of the first 4 races, and then it just kind of all went downhill from there. But best of luck to Ron tomorrow. That's always a fun contest to participate in, so definitely make sure you do join. You have to get your picks in, though, before first race post time, which is 12:35 p.m. And we also have big news. We mentioned this yesterday afternoon. There will be a mandatory payout in the Pick 6 this coming Saturday. There's going to be a mandatory payout in everything: the late Pick 5, the 20-cent Rainbow 6, and the Super High 5. And of course, entries did come out yesterday for Saturday, and it's going to be a lovely day full of stakes action.
Yeah, a really exciting card there. We have several stakes on tap, and it will be a great way to close out 2016 in style. Maybe if you hit one of those multi-race wagers or that Super High 5, you can start off 2017 with a bang.
Let's hope so. I might even play a Pick 6 ticket or something, because it's a great card too. So you have to have your handicapping hats on. I was looking at the card last night and this morning, but it's going to be a really fun sequence. So hopefully we do have this carryover, keep continuing on to Saturday with that mandatory payout in the Pick 6. And speaking of those featured wagers, we'll take a look at the wagering menu here today. And we start things off in race 1 with that 50-cent early Pick 5. Of course, that is a mandatory payout in the early Pick 5. Acacia has a ticket for that. As we get to race 2, again, there's no Super High 5 wagering in the first race. There needs to be 7 or more betting interest. There's not in race 1, but it does start in race 2. No carryover in that, but that is a $1-based wager for that rolling Super High 5. Looking ahead to later on the card, race 5 starts the Rainbow 6. That carryover continuing to build over $300,000 today. I thought it was a really fun sequence too. I couldn't find a single, though. It's tough to find a single, but I think you can still play it on a limited bankroll today. And our final featured wager of the day comes in race 6, the 50-cent late Pick 5. Acacia will have a ticket for that as well. So lots to look forward to today. We are fast and firm on the turf, and fast, of course, on the main track. 12:35 p.m. first post. Got a lot to get to, 10 races, so we'll get straight to it. And we start things off with race 1. Let's take a look at your ticket.
Well, look at my ticket, and I agree with you about the later part of the card where there does look to be a tough spot to find a single. I couldn't find a single in the first half of the card either. It's going to be $54 for me in the early Pick 5. I really do like Case Dismissed in the second race, but looking at our picks, we all kind of went different directions in there. I know that you went a totally different way, but I did go protectively in that 3 deep in the third race. And then Alsterone in the fourth race definitely looks like a logical single, but I think that this is a horse that'll be a very short price. He's taking a big class drop, but I just wasn't entirely totally sold on singling that horse, so I did go a little bit protectively in there, and then 3 deep in the finale, again for $54.
$54 in the early Pick 5. Thank you, Acacia, as we start things off in the first 6 furlongs on the main track for this open $16,000 condition. And I guess we should start off by talking about the one, Thanks God, and go back and look at this horse's replay. He did get into a little bit of trouble last time out. Now first off the claim for Steeptown.
He showed some early interest last time and then kind of got stuck behind a wall of horses. You see there, the number 3 just doesn't have any room to run. He tried going outside, and then he started going inside, and then he just kind of stopped cold in the stretch. The winner was in front the whole time. There was nobody that was going to catch, been waiting. So you do have to have a couple reservations 15 spot. This horse maybe now first off the claim, he stays at that level, and he had been running up against much tougher. It looked like kind of a latch stitch. Maybe the connections wanted this horse to get claimed and have somebody else kind of try their hand with him, because he was kind of stuck finishing in the money, but it was finishing in the money against tougher.
He did. It was a pretty aggressive drop by Antonio Sano last time out, but as you said, he was heavily backed by the betting public, going off at 90 cents of the dollar, reserved the entire stretch run. So that's where I go back to him. But the new connection, Steve Town, he doesn't claim very often, and trying to find a stat for that, it's virtually impossible. But for what it's worth, he's 2 for 4 first off the claim. So his claims have won. It's just not a big sample size, so we're not going to show that. But looking at some alternative options here, the 5 over limit, he's 5 to 2 on the morning line. And this is a horse who has, in the past 2 starts, run at Gulfstream Park West. And I would imagine he'll take money just because he's technically getting a class relief, and he was well bet last time out. But this is a horse who you can't have a tremendous amount of confidence for, because when he transitioned from the synthetic to the main track, his speed disappeared, and so did his form.
That was my biggest reason for passing on him today, because I did pick him in his last 2 races when he came to Florida, shipping in from Woodbine. He actually won at first asking on the synthetic at Woodbine. He was disqualified and placed second in that race. He came back, he won next time out. I do like to see that. He had quite a bit of speed there. Then he came to Gulfstream Park West and did take some money, and then just didn't really run at all in his first race at Gulfstream Park West. It was kind of a lackluster performance, a little bit of closing effort last time, but really not anything. And he didn't show that same kind of speed that he did up north, so that's why I passed on him.
And you prefer the 6 overdone here on the opposite side. Does have a little bit of speed.
Does have a little bit of speed, and that's why I went with him instead. I do think that he'll be a bit of a price. He was a huge price last time out, and he was so wide early, being drawn to the outside last time, and just a ton of horses came running in the stretch.
And we love to show positive stats on trainer Mike Maker, because it's very easy to find, but it's always good to be cognizant of when it's not the right time to bet Mike Maker horses, and that does perhaps come here with the number 4 Boot and Loot, who figures to take money in here off of a maiden victory last time out. We'll show a stat for him with maiden winners last out, sprinting on the dirt at the claiming level. Not a good approach, 11% and a negative ROI of 52 cents. So the horses, they run okay, they hit the board, but they're usually heavily bet and they underperform. So that's just something to be aware of. Of course, you and I didn't use that horse really in the top couple of horses, but I can imagine that horse taking money. And of course, you want to look at that when you're strategizing your early pick 5. But let's turn our pages to the second race here, 5.5 furlongs for this maiden $16,000 event, and the 1 Case Dismissed. A good showing first time out on the sloppy sealed track. He
was off slow, and we'll go back and show that race. And it was that sloppy sealed track that day. And I thought that she actually did run pretty well considering all of that. It was the sloppy track. She did run into some traffic. She was kind of weaving through horses around the 3/16 pole, and then managed to split horses in the stretch. And you see her, she just keeps running on really nicely in the stretch. Now, she does have to show that she can run that way on a fast track. That was the sloppy sealed track in her debut, but she does have some winning siblings. It's Eduardo Espora Jr., and I thought that one, just off of that performance, looks like a good one in this spot.
Now, I really didn't know what to do with a filly like this, because she is technically bred to handle an off track, and she did just that in her first start. The question is always, are they going to take a few steps down off of that, or are they going to improve on a fast track? And we'll see more of her today to try to, conjure an opinion. But that particular day, the track, it almost kind of favored speed/stalking types. And the tracks started to change throughout the afternoon. So it's very hard to kind of solidify an opinion on how the track was that day. But there were no horses that were making up that much ground. So I think that is a feather in the cap of the 1 Case Dismissed. But she does have to work out a trip from the inside, and she looks like a closer, and the cutback in distance, I don't know how she's going to fare for that. So a couple of vulnerabilities, I thought, with her, although one to respect. Going with a crazy first-time starter, Harambe, we've got funny horse names this afternoon.
This is definitely one of them.
It's definitely one of them. But I like the pedigree for this horse and the connections here with maiden claiming first-time starters on the dirt. I didn't show this stat because it's a low sample size, but have won with 2 starters out of 9, so 22%, and it is a positive ROI over $2.48. So some good things there. And if you look at the pedigree, this filly's by Warriors Reward on the bottom side. The mare has produced 6 winners. Now they haven't been great horses, but this isn't a great field.
No, it's not. And there is an alternative of the number 9, Sassy Sierra. And when you do have some horses that have raced before but still have their own fair share of questions, like Case Dismissed on the sloppy field, like Sassy Sierra, who's coming to the outside, getting a little bit of a class drop. She ran okay last time, drifted a little bit in the stretch. Maybe a first-time starter is the way to go, but I did like that Sassy Sierra is getting that class relief, and she does have 5 siblings that have won, and I thought she ran, again, an okay third last time.
And that's the thing. She did technically face maiden $25,000 claimers last time out. However, I thought that was a very weak field for the level. Liberty Gibbet, I mean, that horse, she ran well for that race, but I think it's more of a lateral move than a class drop. That said, she is the proven commodity on the main track. You know what you're getting with her. You know that she has a little bit of speed. She's proven on a fast main track. So I think she's more of a sure bet than perhaps the one who does have some question marks. So I thought she was the one to beat. Also throwing in a first-time starter, the number 3, Jenna Antonucci. Does good work with her first-time starters at the maiden claiming level, to be specific. So an interesting second race. But I think even more interesting is the third, and as we turn our attention to this maiden special weight for Florida breds going a mile on the turf. This is an excellent betting race, and it can be, I had an opinion in here, but I can't blame you for going to the 8, asked and answered. I think this is the horse to beat on paper.
It's the horse to beat on paper, but I agree with you. I would by no means single in this race. I think you could definitely find some value, super high 5 wagering as well, but asked and answers to the outside. This one has run on the turf before and has run well, which is why he got my nod in here. Did lose the lead last time, but did manage to hold on for third. It's a half to a multiple stakes winner, but who never tried the turf. It's by Leroy Desanimo, so I think that this one is the proven commodity on the turf. He's been working on a turf track, coming back for this maiden special weight race, and off of that last performance, definitely the one to beat.
And I almost thought that last time out, he probably could have, Eddie Castro could have been a touch more patient with this horse. He made the first move, and then he was just swallowed up by horses who made the second move. So if he was in that second flight of horses, I think he could have even won the race, but he flattened out a little bit after making that first move into a pace setter that kind of just collapsed there. So the question is, how strong was that maiden special weight, and are there other first-time starters in here that might be a little bit better? But I do think that this is a horse to beat. The 5 Little Matt was an interesting one to me. He is by in summation, but on the bottom side, he's kin to 2 other turf winners, including Ghost Trap, who won a high-level claiming race on the turf going long. And we'll show a stat here for Carlo Vaccarezza with this type of move. With his maidens going from dirt to turf, he's 25%, and it pays nicely, $5. And this horse has not been in bad form on the main track when he's been placed at the right level.
That's exactly right. He finished a good second in his debut, came back, tried the Bird on the wire stakes. They thought enough of him to put him in a stake in his second start. Took about a 4-month layoff prior to after that, and came back. And even after bumping at the start a bit last time, managed to get third. I do like him trying the turf, and especially with those stats, and like to see Jose Lascano aboard. But a horse that I had some interest in that you did not use is the 4 Teddy's Honor, who gets blinkers on today. And we'll go back and show that debut race for Teddy's Honor, which was on the 4th of December here at Gulfstream Park. He's another one who has had a race on the turf. He's the number 6 that day, gets slammed around at the start, and we'll watch the break. So just really bumped around and still manages to get a good spot early. It was a nice move by Luca Panici there to get him into a good position. He's a little bit wide, but having to deal with that bump definitely does look like he managed to get in a good spot. He managed to be a distant fourth, probably because he did have to be a bit wide in that race. But I thought it was definitely a learning experience for this horse.
It definitely was a learning experience. And here, sometimes, you know, when horses are bumped like that in their first start, it kind of shakes them up a bit. And the only thing with this horse coming down the stretch, he didn't switch his leads. He just stayed on the wrong lead. He still looked a little bit green. But like I said, sometimes when you get off to that start, it shakes them up and they just kind of proceed to do their own thing. Second time out, they do a little bit better. And I will say, I looked at this horse very hard. I picked him fifth in here. Because I wanted to get creative with some of these interesting surface switched horses or first time starters. But Teddy's Honor, in my opinion, is coming out of a stronger maiden special weight than the horse coming from Tampa, because they ran fast. Mr. Meister was a Bill Mott horse that was coming out of really good races, just looked really strong in that performance. So Teddy's Honor, you know, with a little bit, in my opinion, of a class relief here. I know he's staying at the same level, but he could be one to look out for. If you're constructing your ticket in the early pick 5, this is a race that you definitely want to spread in.
Yes, I agree with you there. I think definitely a couple interesting options, and it is worth noting that we both did take the wait and see approach yet again for the number 3. He's the one who does look to be part of the pace scenario, but will probably take money at a short price I couldn't see betting.
He runs well, and you know, he ran well against Santee Knows Best. That horse came back to kind of be a dud against Stakes Company or Allowance Company in his next start. He's been exposed against Maiden Claiming Company. He just looks like a horse that no matter the level, he runs well, just doesn't quite get over that hurdle of finding the winner circle. So I even use the 7D Maestro. I think he's got a lovely turf pedigree. So a very interesting maiden special weight in the third race. As we get to the fourth, a maiden 12,500 event going the 1-turn mile onto the main track. And we have a heavy favorite in here in the 2, Alsterone. A tough ask, because this horse is dropping from $50,000 claimers after finishing third to that bottom level today.
Yeah, and that is what I alluded to early, that I thought that this horse will be a very short price on the class drop, and because of the connections. And you look on paper and you say, oh, he finished third last time out, but he was beaten 8 lengths. She was, beaten 8 lengths. It was a 5-horse field. She really showed nothing in the stretch. I thought it was actually kind of a lackluster performance. Now she's taking this very big drop down, and even money on the morning line. I did put her on top, but by no means would I single her.
And you see the field that she comes out of. Savannah Bell is another Eddie Keneally horse, and she actually came back to run in a starter $50,000 race, and she was second in there. So that filly was handled with confidence and protected off of that maiden win. Budget Cut, the second place finisher, came back to win via DQ, a maiden special weight. So you know, she was beaten by 2 okay horses, so I think this is a really questionable drop. So I landed on a horse who is technically dropping from maiden special weight company to maiden 12,500 if you're just looking at her performances on a fast main track. And sometimes you have to do that. You have to get creative in these races. Fernando Abreu has started the meet off in very good fashion. Of course, you get Luca Panici, who's had a fantastic start to the winter meet here in Gulfstream. So kind of basing it on the drop and the connections.
I agree with you there. You actually went to one, Fernando Abreu, and I went to the other one with the 6, Wild Dalton. This one is running on the turf in her last 2 starts, so she's going back to the dirt. Her last dirt start was against State Bred Maiden 12-5 Company, and she finished a respectable 4th. She had kind of a steady bid in that race, and so I thought if she's able to go back to that form, maybe now she's got a bit more experience, a bit more fitness underneath her.
All right, that is races 1 through 4. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll tackle the 20-cent Rainbow 6 carryover, over $300,000 today, right after this.
January 28th at Gulfstream Park, an icon takes flight. The world's richest thoroughbred horse race. 12 of the sport's finest horses. One race. $12 million on the line. Watch, wager, witness. Go to PegasusWorldCup.com for more.
Zephyr is pulling away. Gulf Zephyr blows them away with an
Welcome back to Gulfstream today. Gabby Gaudette joined by Acacia Courtney. Now taking a look at the 20-cent Rainbow Six. It starts in race 5 today, and we have a nice carryover of a whopping $300,000. And here is a look at my ticket. I could not find a single in the sequence, but still keeping it around $50, $57.60 will do it for me. As we start things off, the 7, Debbie's Tude, looks to be the favorite in here, and she's really aided by the scratch of the number 4, Sunrise Kitty. But backing myself up with the 3, Reagan's Odyssey, as we move along, just using 2 horses in the 6 with the 4-8, spreading in race 7, 2 horses in the 8th. And I wanted to tack on the 11 in race 9. There's a big class dropper, really suspicious George Navarro horse there, the number 5, but I don't quite trust that one. So protectively using the 8 and the 11 and capping it off with the 2, 3, and the 12. So hopefully we get through this very nicely. Hopefully we get to the final leg of the sequence. But the first race we started off on the turf, an open $16,000 claimer. And we have the 7, Debbie's Tude, second off the claim for trainer Ray Handel.
Well, you're right. This looks like a horse to beat, especially with the the scratch of Sunrise Kitty in here. She is also getting a class drop. Ran on a mile and an 1/8 last time out on a good track at Aqueduct, and that was her first start off of the claim for Ray Handel. She has some speed. I think now running maybe against a little bit easier. She'll get a firm turf in here. She probably will promise to take some attention too, again, with that scratch. But it looks like these are the 2 logical horses.
Debbie's Tude, she's just, you get what you get with her. She doesn't like to chase. She doesn't like to stalk like she did last time out. I mean, that was a subpar performance, but she was taken out of her running style that day. So the best approach for her is to go to the lead and just kind of send the field on a merry chase. I thought one of her best performances, and I love watching Debbie's Tude. I'm well familiar with her under her previous connections, Bill Comlow, but she is very effective when she's left alone on the lead. She beat the boys in her first race of this season, actually coming off that November layoff back in June, going wire to wire. So the scratch of the 4, Sunrise Kitty, who was figuring to be part of the pace scenario, really, really helps her. Now we also have the 3, Reagan's Odyssey, who's not that slow, but Acacia, I love the move of taking the blinkers off because she does have a rating gear, and I think she might even be more effective when she can harness her speed.
That might be the key too. I do like to see the blinkers off, maybe help her settle a little bit too. And I didn't show this stat, but Safi Joseph Jr. does have very good numbers, second off the claim, about 32% in the win column. It's not a positive ROI, but it is pretty solid. He's about 82% in the money as well. So he does do well, second off the claim, when he's had a horse for a couple starts already. And she's going to be running against a notch easier as well. She tried 20,000 optional claimers last time out at Gulfstream Park West. Maybe with the blinkers on, she'll be able to see what's around her a little bit and sit just behind the speed of Debbie's Tude.
All right, well, it looks like we just used 2 horses in that race, and that's where I land in the first leg of the Pick 6 as we get to the first leg of the late Pick 5. Race 6 kicks us off, a non-winners of 2 lifetime claiming event in for that $30,000 tag, a mile and a 16th on the turf. So let's look at your late Pick 5.
Well, I am in agreement with you once again that there was no singles to be found. I went too deep to start it off, though I would have gone deeper if I could have in several of the races in this sequence. I used Market Strength and Salt Mine in the 6th. I spread in the 7th. I thought there were quite a few ways to go in there and maybe some value to be had in that race as well. Too deep in the feature in the 8th race with Stay the Night and Alicia's World. And then I did also use that number 11 horse you were talking about in the 9th race with Starship Apollo. I too am picking against George Navarro, and then 3 deep in the finale for 48.
Okay, nice affordable ticket there, $48. And as we said, we start things off on the turf, and the 8 Market Strength is definitely the horse to beat in my estimation. First for trainer Armando de la Cerda, and when you look at these connections, Armando de la Cerda, Danny Gargan, they both are trainers that train for Midwest Thoroughbred. So just a little bit of a shift here. And Armando doing a fantastic job so far with limited starters so far in the during the winter meet at Gulfstream. And I think this horse is just going to really prefer getting to a firm going.
I think so too, and has to rebound off of that performance last time out. But he was running against some good company. Bowtie Affair has been a pretty good runner. We saw second place finisher Parr come back and win again yesterday for Todd Pletcher. And then 2 starts back. This is the race that I'm really going off of. They went very slow. You see 26 for the first, and then 50 and 3 at that race at Belmont, going a mile and a 16th. And there were some good. That was a good productive race as well. Rooftop View came back to win his next 2. The Catman Can came back to win his next 2 races with some good figures as well for both of those. So I think he's coming off of a good performance 2 starts back. I think you can put a line through the last one. I do agree Armando's been doing a very good job lately, and that's why I landed on this one.
And could be freshened up, and a great point there by those slow fractions that this horse just could not close into 2 starts back at Belmont. So like I said, on paper this horse is the one to beat. I was getting creative here with the number 4, Extreme Justice, just because, you know, I like this horse. I was interested in this horse last time out because I thought that you could get value on a horse like this given his last race. He was well backed by the public when he took a slight class relief to the $30,000 level at Gulfstream Park West. He didn't like the conditions of that surface. Once he finally got to a firmer going, he ran a huge race last time out. He was desperately trying to find room throughout the entire stretch, and he only found it late and was beaten a neck behind Whip and Nene, who came back to win. So that too is a productive race, and I'm once again interested in this horse as maybe an alternative or in a backup for market strength.
Absolutely, and if you look too back when he didn't like that going as well, that was also against 30,000 condition claimers. Then he went back to the non-winners of 2 last time, which just might be where he needed to be all along as well, and he got that firm ground again. I thought it was a good performance. Whip and Nene ran huge yesterday. I did have some interest in the number 6, Salt Mine, who I thought was wide last time, and I think maybe had a few excuses in that race. You see, beaten by slim margins, did kind of yield a little bit in that race, but has put up some good performances against this level.
And kind of has similar form as my top selection, Extreme Justice, coming out of the same race last time out, and a subpar effort on that good going at Gulfstream Park West. So I guess if you like if you like Extreme Justice, you might have to be interested in Salt Mine as well at 9-2 on the morning line as we get to the first leg of the final pick 4 of the day, race 7, a maiden $25,000 race. And this one too, I thought maybe you could look at other options, but the 5 Wilshire Star is probably going to get the most backing for Ralph Nix.
Probably going to get the most backing, and I'll admit I did try to look elsewhere and see if I could find other value. I can understand taking somebody like the 10 All's Well, but I did just land on Wilshire Star. Came off of about a 4-month layoff to try the turf last time out. Was second best behind Major Key, but did run pretty solidly in that effort and has been working very well since. I was also dropping from special weight to this maiden 25 level. Like that he stays right at this level. They don't drop him again or anything, and I think that this is where he belongs.
Okay, and looking at the 12, Giant's Voice to the outside. We'll show a video spotlight replay of this horse last seen on the 7th of December here locally at Gulfstream. And I think this is just a Todd Pletcher horse that you have to use when you're looking at those multi-race sequences.
It is one that you have to use. He was the heavy favorite last time out, 80 cents to the dollar, finished 3rd, but he was drawn outside, and he was parked wide for so much of the race. And I'm afraid that that's exactly what's going to happen again here today. He's the number 12. If he was drawn a little bit more to the inside, I might use him again. I think he's one that's going to be used basically because he's from Todd Pletcher, and he was running on. He was running well in the stretch. He finished 3rd, beaten just about 2 lengths there, but as such a heavy favorite, having to be parked so wide, he was bumped a little bit in the stretch there with the winner coming along the outside, and I thought he was game, but hopefully he doesn't get stuck so wide today.
He was very wide, and maybe that took a little bit of wind out of his sails coming down the stretch. But the thing that I didn't like about his race was, yes, he was a heavy favorite. He was supposed to win that race regardless. He dropped down to the $25,000 tag. That was 7.5 furlongs, and now they're asking him to get more distance when he was fading last out. So, and he's got the 12 hole or 11 with the scratch. But you know, it's a lot to ask for this horse, and I thought he was probably going to be decently bet in here. So I was trying to find a better price. The 10 All's Well is where I landed. He's got a nice pedigree here. He's by Lemon Drop Kid. You've got Giant's Causeway on the bottom side, so top and bottom to go 2 turns on the turf. And that was the intention all along, is to try to get this horse to the turf. It was rained off of it in his first start and did not show up that day, but we will show a stat here for trainer Eddie Pliza with maiden second-time starters going from dirt to turf. He's 17% and still a positive ROI, $2.78 and 31% in the money. So I was interested in this horse off of his turf pedigree, and that stat kind of solidified it as maybe a nice horse to use to try to beat some of the shorter prices.
Well, if you remember in the pick 5, I did go 4 deep in here because they wanted to include All's Well, and you do have to take into account this horse is also getting a class drop as well. They tried to run him on the turf in that 50,000 maiden event, so now he's down to the 25.
All right, we'll take a look at the 8th race here, a mile and an eighth on the turf course with 2 other than allowance optional claim, our feature race of the day, and it is that. It's a very, very nice race. I think the one to beat here on paper, where you and I both land, is the 7 Elysia's World. We've seen it time and time again. Chad Brown just freshens up his horses from New York in the fall, brings them here to South Florida, and they win.
He does, and he does have a double chance in here. He also has the 3 Verboen, and I think that Alicia's Worlds is coming off of about a more than 3-month layoff in here. Was actually last in the Grade 2 Sands Point last time out, but did show some speed. But if you look at the kind of company that she's been keeping, I think that that gives her the edge in here. She was beaten by Shug McGahee's On Leave in the Sands Point last time, and then she was running against the likes of Time and Motion and Catch a Glimpse in the Lake Placid prior to that. So she's just been keeping such excellent company. I think that she certainly coming off that freshening is going to help her too.
And honestly, I know Chad Brown has won a tremendous amount of graded stakes races throughout this year, especially even on the dirt. He's been winning on any surface and level, but this is where he really gets strong statistics in a lot of his wins, is because, and we saw this throughout the summer at Saratoga, he takes horses that have been running against Grade 2, Grade 1, Grade 3 company that are still eligible for a 3 other than condition, or excuse me, 2 other than condition, taking them out of those graded stakes company, giving them a confidence boost in these races, and they win, and it sets them up for a nice campaign. So that's where I see the strategy with the 7 Elysia's World. So I'm not going against her, but I do think that her downfall in here is her overall lack of early speed, and this is kind of a tough, it's a potent, but it's a short field, so maybe she could get too far off of the pace.
Oh, that is the thing. You don't really have anyone else besides your second choice, the number 6, Kasuga, who looks like she is going to be out on the front and on the pace.
And that is where the strategy came into play in the pick 6. I was thinking, well, Elysia's World is a class. If she doesn't show up, if she can't edge the gap in time, I do think that Kasuga is going to be the lone speed in here. So although I think Stay the Night is a better horse, tactically I think Kasuga is at an advantage. But speaking of Stay the Night, we have a video replay of her last performance. That was against 2 other than company, where she was just beaten a half length behind Bishop's Pond.
And Bishop's Pond led the entire way that day. Stay the Night tried to make a move, but again just got stuck behind a wall of horses. You see, had to steady a little bit, but she kept on when she found running room, which was really good. And Bishop's Pond did run very well. Actually had again, excuse me, I got a little lost of where I was looking at. This was a mile and 3/8. So Bishop's Pond again was out on the front. Stay the Night made up a lot of ground there to be beaten by only half a length, and that's what I liked, was how she made up the ground that day.
She absolutely did, and she showed so much tenacity down on the inside. She had her horse to her outside, and she just would not give in. She kept on closing the gap there. So I like all, I think she's got class here. I like that Julian Leparoux aboard fits these types of horses very well. So, like I said, she is probably better, but Kasuga might have the tactical advantage. But a very nice featured race here as we get to the 9th race. And non-winners of 3 lifetime in for that 6250 claiming tag, 5.5 furlongs on the main track. And this is where the 5 Twizzle comes into play. Will you take the George Navarro dropper? Will you not? For what it's worth, we've seen horses like this so far this meet win and sometimes lose at 1 to 9.
Yes, we certainly have seen both, but this one hasn't run since July. He's got quite a bit of speed. It is a tremendous drop in here for George Navarro. Does get in light with Lane Luzzy in the saddle, so he will be on the front end. I picked against him today. I just couldn't. When you have a horse that's a $235,000 purchase, has shown speed, has won against much tougher, yes, coming off a layoff, but then for 6250.
And this is where it's either scary or smart, because if you're a trainer and you're looking at this type of horse, you're thinking, okay, well, maybe the surface change and the aggressive drop, maybe they're getting kind of savvy and trying to drop this horse, making him eligible for starter allowance races in the future. Or maybe they just want to get rid of him, and it's a kind of a red flag. So I think these races are so hard to predict. In my opinion, I think you have to use a horse like this in the pick 6 because you don't want to get kicked out by a 1 to 9 shot for George Navarro that wires the field. But if this horse doesn't show speed on the main track, we could have the 8 Joey 6-pack kind of go in that spot in terms of speed. He's got his MO, he likes to be on the lead, and that's about it. I like the slight cutback in distance for this horse. He's been running at 6 furlongs, but he's undefeated. He's 2 for 2 at 5.5 furlongs, which I thought was key for him.
He is, and I think the Joey 6-pack is going to have some speed to go with Twizzle in here. Twizzle, as you said, will be very heavily bet as well, but I went to the outside. You had alluded to this horse earlier with the number 11 Starship Apollo, who won first off the claim for trainer Angel M. Rodriguez. And in contrast to Twizzle, who's taking such an aggressive drop off the layoff, this one's actually dropping off a win, but is going to go right to the non-winners of 3. He won against 12-5 non-winners of 2 last time and won impressively, so you would almost expect to see this horse even step up in class. But he drops down, but what we've often said is these connections like to place horses where they think that they can win, and probably thinks that Starship Apollo, as I do, could sit a nice trip behind the speed of Joey 6-pack and Twizzle.
And the pace scenario definitely sets up for him, as we said. If Twizzle and Joey 6-pack hook up on the front end, it's going to pave the way for a horse like Starship Apollo. So when you're looking at the pick 6 or maybe pick 5, I used Joey 6-pack just in case Twizzle doesn't show the early speed that he has shown in the past, using Twizzle protectively, and then of course the 11 Starship Apollo, who should be closing late and picking up the pieces as we get to the nightcap here. Race 10, a maiden $25,000 event, 5 furlongs there onto the turf course, and you land on the 5 later, who is taking a big drop in class in terms of turf performances.
It is a big drop in class, and one of the main reasons I landed on this one, you know how I feel about Parker Elizabeth, and I see that you picked against her this time too. I just feel like this is a horse that always ends up taking money. She always runs solidly, but she never seems to win. So I went elsewhere with the class dropper. I went 2 later for Kathleen O'Connell, who does have 2 in here. She also has the 3, Better Be Fast. And I thought that this one with the class drop, finishing 4th last time against $50,000 maidens, as well as the return to turf, where she ran a very good 3rd in special weight company in her only turf start. So that's what I'm going off of here.
Well, you know what happens. I liked her last time out. You picked against her. She lost without any excuse whatsoever. And today, now that I pick against her and you pick against her, she'll probably win.
Yes, so bet everything on Parker Elizabeth.
And I didn't leave her off of the pick 6 for that very reason alone. But I do think that she's vulnerable. I do think Later is probably the better horse in here. But I went with a horse that's 10 to 1 on the morning line. That is the 2 Mojo's Queen. First off, first-time trainer switch for Ralph Nixon. We have a trainer stat here for the barn with the trainer switch going from dirt to turf. 4 for 18, so 22%, and it's still a positive ROI, 33% in the money. So it's an okay stat, but this horse is bred for the turf. So I just like the surface change, and maybe Ralph Nix can freshen her up a little bit, and she is getting a drop in class. So I think a couple things to take note of. By all means, I am not very confident in that top selection, but we will show a stat here, another stat for Kathleen O'Connell, which I was paying attention to because I was so close to picking later. And this stat is applicable to both of her horses here, Better Be Fast, number 3, and later, going from dirt to turf, maiden sprinters. She's only 4 for 42, 10%, and a negative ROI. So that was the only reason why I try to find another option, but I do think that later is the better horse here.
Definitely something to look at. We do always see good physicals coming out of Kathleen O'Connell's barn, so not an easy way to round out the card, that is for sure.
It absolutely isn't, but we have a fantastic day on tap. It's a beautiful day here in South Florida as well. $300,000 in that Pick 6 carryover. Super high five starts in race 2 today, but you can dive into the action early in race 1 with that early Pick 5. Thank you once again for joining us here on Gulfstream today, and best of luck on today's card.